how's this for a character description? A Jenner kid, like basically Kylie or Kendall Jenner, except instead of being like a model, they decide to be a VTuber and end up getting involved in a lot of Yakuza stuff. And the character was interesting and not cringe. Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Like a Dragon 8, aka Yakuza 8, but no longer called Yakuza anywhere. Because it was only in the North America, in the West, that it was called Yakuza at all. It was always just Like a Dragon or Ryu-Ga Gotoku in Japan. And yeah, this is the second of the JRPG turn-based style games that I enjoyed, but I know a lot of fans of the franchise were not a fan of. That said, I would still say I prefer the beat 'em ups. As like if I could choose, I'd say I think the beat 'em up combat is a bit more engaging to me personally. Oh, David Hayter is a bartender. How about that? What's actually kind of crazy is I think the combat system in this game would be a lot more appealing to people who prefer the beat 'em up games, because it's a lot more engaging and it requires a lot more attention and input from the player with things like positioning, which is a big part of Yakuza games. Because even Yakuza games, you spend a lot of your time locked on targets, so positioning is more like you do your dodging and figuring out who you need to be aiming which attack at which time. And you're kind of doing a lot of that here. It's just there's a thin layer of turn-based over it, and it is turn-based, and it's not even active time. But yeah, this game was awesome though. The combat system is very, very engaging and keeps you involved in the moment-to-moment button reactions, and you know, like reaction time matters, pressing which button at which time matters often, and different attacks have different commands that you can give them bonus damage with, and you can always block attacks, or in most cases you can block attacks unless it's a grapple. So there's a lot there mechanically, not just storyline wise, because I think a lot of people might say, hey, well, the story for Yakuza Like a Dragon might have been really good, but that turn-based combat, I just found it not to be very much fun. And I think while I disagree, because I did like the combat in the previous game in Yakuza Like a Dragon, this one steps up the energy quite a bit. And it's a lot more engaging to play just from a mechanical standpoint. I don't know that this was a better story than Yakuza Like a Dragon, but it was very good and kept me on my toes a lot. And I love the cult angle, like having a cult villain as a thing in a Yakuza game was new. At least I played a bunch of them now and I've not yet seen it. There are cults in sub-stories, but it's never been like the antagonist and not an international cult with all sorts of resources. It was really cool to be outside of Japan, funny enough to say, for a Yakuza game. Because going to Japan is kind of part of the experience, but a lot of this game took place in Hawaii. And hey, you know, I got my festive Hawaiian shirt on, my little Hawaiian puppy. I mean, her mother likes Hawaiian pizza, like pineapple on pizza. I think that's blasphemy, but you know, we love Mama. X-Ray Girl is good mama to puppies. I like the new characters quite a lot, even not just the player characters either. I thought Yamai was really awesome because he is introduced as the most one-dimensional villain dude you can imagine. Like, he's big, scary dude who looks like he's dying, like he looks like he's been sick for a very long time, is always wearing a big coat even though he's in the middle of Hawaii, and does some pretty scary things at the beginning of the game. And by the end of it, it's like, oh man, Yamai's actually a pretty good guy. And they get you there gradually and have you fight him a whole bunch of times. So it's not like Yamai is the kind of character that just all of a sudden is good. Like it takes some time to get you there, the way a good TV show would write characters like Spike, you know? I mean, like, obviously Yamai is nothing like Spike, but you know what I mean? Like, when you take a villain and develop them into a protagonist, you got to make sure that you do the work. And I think with Yamai, at least they did in this game. quite a bit. I thought that having the two campaigns kind of happening, because at the midway point of the game bounces between Hawaii and Japan, with you playing as Ichiban and Kiryu respectively. And that was a very cool element of it. It essentially doubled the time you spend developing characters, because you had two distinct dungeons to go through where you could get upgrade items and stuff. So I got more than just one legendary item this time, or like ultimate weapon being a thing that happens in a lot of RPGs where every character has their ultimate weapon that you have to kind of do different things to do. It was pretty straightforward in this, and that made me want to pursue them, because I was like, okay, I know the materials I have to get for this, I understand where I can earn them, but I'm not just going in there to grind materials, because I'm also getting experience, which I really need right now because I'm grinding levels, and money because I need to be buying better armor and things like that. So I can go to this dungeon and do all three of those things at once, and that's what I did with most of my offline infinite wealth time. When I was playing this game, not during stream, I would frequently just be found in those dungeons, like listening to podcasts, grinding the dungeons over and over again. I had like my arcade stick out and would sometimes put on the auto battle mode, because that's a thing you can do where the game just kind of selects attacks for you, not really at random. It kind of tries to pick things that are relatively appropriate to the fight that you're in, and you can still react to the commands. So you can add extra damage with each one by hitting the right quick time event as the attack's happening, or you can block in time with enemy attacks to mitigate a bunch of your own damage. Not just Yamai, but the other new characters. I thought Chitose was great. Hey, how's this for a character description? A Jenner kid, like basically Kylie or Kendall Jenner, except instead of being like a model, they decide to be a VTuber and end up getting involved in a lot of Yakuza stuff. And the character was interesting and not cringe, and did some redemption stuff of her own by the end. And you know, it's good storytelling here. Good storytelling. I don't know that I would recommend this as anyone's first Yakuza game, even though I think it would be very safe to say that this is very much the most approachable one, if we're talking about everything except for the story, because there's a whole lot of things that tie into older Yakuza games. So there's a lot of benefit that you get out of knowing, if not the whole rest of the series or a chunk of the rest of the series, at least Yakuza Like a Dragon. I don't know if I could recommend this to be anyone's first Yakuza game, but because of the production value, the overall quality of the English translation, and things like the lip syncing and stuff, Kaiji Tang's performance also being very good, and there being tons of varied gameplay in this, and a lot of quality of life things like having the Segway to move around the city quickly. It's very approachable, but it's kind of tied into the previous game a lot. Yeah, everybody, I think that was quite the incredible video game. I'd said this a few times as I was playing it, but I honestly think that a good way to explain this is it's kind of the Japanese style RPG equivalent to like a Baldur's Gate 3 deal, where the production values in this game are insane for what it is, because it doesn't compromise on being a turn-based JRPG. It's a really good one, and it plays with a lot of the conventions of a JRPG, including themes and enemy types in a lot of ways, but it does it in a way that's like, hey, this is a fantastical version of real world, as opposed to this is a fantasy land entirely. So it's got a little bit of grounding that maybe can create some uncanny valley stuff, but that's sort of always the thing with the Yakuza games, because again, it's like instance gameplay. I really got to figure out who the YouTuber is that said this, but whoever came up with the theory of Yakuza fights existing in pocket dimensions, I think is a great jumping off point, but I almost think a better way to explain it that I think I've been narrowing in on. And again, not taking credit for the original idea, but it's almost like every single gameplay style in a Yakuza game, be it batting cages, golf, fishing, combat, exploration, kart riding, crazy taxi Uber delivery, which is a thing in this game. It's on a bicycle, but yeah, no, it's like crazy taxi called crazy delivery, I think, or something like that, or crazy eats. All those things are their own mini game, and all of them are distinctly designed around how can we make a mini game in which you are doing the fishing in this game, and how do we make it as fun as possible? And in a lot of cases, a little bit different than we did it in the previous game or the previous few games. Like they vary how each of these little mini games feel, to the point that the whole game feels like walking around in one of the Club Segas inside one of the games, where you can just like sit down and play any arcade machine. Well, there's all sorts of little arcade games. Do you want to go play the golf game, the batting cage game? Do you want to go, race and find cans with a super fast bicycle cart thing? Like, do you want to do go-kart racing that's essentially Sonic and Sega All-Star Racing? Like, there's that in the previous game, at least, where it's just a full-blown go-kart deal. And I think that's amazing. And I honestly think it's one of the reasons why these games tend to become people's favorite games ever. Like, or at least for franchises, because it's really special, man. And Infinite Wealth was a really great one. Make no defense at all about the business practices around the New Game Plus stuff and the launch. I mean, clearly it's saying I can do that because I got the more expensive one. But I did that because I liked the series and wanted to support it. I didn't even know what I was getting with it, to be honest. It said, like, holiday pack. I'm like, that's probably costumes, whatever. But I love this series. What the hell? I didn't realize I'd be supporting kind of a scummy business practice as a result. But you know what? It's over now. I guess my recommendation would be get the base version of the game, or play it on Game Pass whenever it shows up there, because all the other Yakuza games are on Game Pass. So I think that's a safe assumption that in a year or so it'll be there. Maybe by the end of this year, probably. Especially if they have any other spin-off come out. Which, I mean, they had one come out a couple months ago. So having one out by next December is not insane. Jojo. I guess I gotta wrap this up because the puppy is crying. Jojo. She's a good puppy. But anyways, yeah, I think I would strongly recommend playing this game. Maybe I would say get the base version, and if you want to do New Game Plus, I mean, find a mod. Yeah, I'm sure someone's gonna make that, because that's what the community does. It gets around silly things like that. However, I recommend getting the game though. Support it, just don't support the scumminess. Jojo really hates harmful business practices. And it exalted too, okay.
I've got a thing for that! We have to have the graphics cranked up. You're looking at our cities, baby. I'm like, yeah, but can I turn them down a little so that this game doesn't run like my PS5 is dying?
Yeah, I will leave you in peace is definitely a better thing to say than legendary gloves, son!
Telling to the blade of Pinocchio, son of Geppetto. Real boy. Also mouse.
Extra Girl sometimes does joke that she gave birth to the puppies. At least I think it's a joke.
Yeah! Oh my god, Extra Girl did it!